Some new materials arrived at the studio this week that I really want to share with you. It's something I've been thinking of getting to use in my sketchbooks for a while. An art savings club, who I'm not sponsored by or anything like that, I just want to share it with you. They are an online art supply company here in South Africa, had an amazing sale on this particular thing that I've been dying to get and give a try to use in my sketchbooks. So let me show you what arrived in the studio. There were a whole lot of other things that arrived as well, but in particular I want to show you the thing that arrived inside the box. Let me open up the box and show you what it is. Inktense blocks were in the box. I've been dying to try these. The Inktense blocks are made by Derwent and they are water-soluble ink blocks. They come in a crayon-like form but are a little bit softer to use, like pastels. They're water-soluble, and so you can dilute them with water and they create beautiful, vibrant color on the surface. You're probably wondering why I have chosen to get the Inktense blocks as opposed to the Inktense pencils, because you also get Inktense in pencil form. Now, I do have a whole lot of water-soluble pencils, and so I decided to rather try the Inktense blocks instead, because I thought that they would be able to do something a little bit different to what the Inktense pencils do. Although I've never actually tried the Inktense pencils, I do often use my water-soluble pencils in my sketchbooks, and I thought that I would try these because I thought that they might be able to make some different marks to the marks that the Inktense pencils can make. So let's have a look at some of the ways that we can use these, because I'm hoping that I'll be able to use them in a slightly different way to the pencils, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can use them, the different ways that you can use them. I'm new to using them as well, so we'll kind of learn and explore and experiment together. But first of all, I want to show you something that I'm going to do to them. The Inktense come in this lovely little container, and it has some little indents in it that I think are like a little palette, so you could actually mix them in here, because remember, this is just ink in stick form. It's like a block of solidified ink, so as soon as you add water to it, it's going to create beautiful wet inky marks. And these little indents, I'm assuming, are for you to be able to mix your paints in. Now, I am actually going to do something that is probably going to horrify you. Are you ready for it? Let me show you what I'm going to do. Yep, I hope I don't regret this. I am going to take my Inktense block and I am actually going to break it in half. Now you're probably thinking, oh, Heidi, what have you done? Why have you done that? Now, there is a pretty good reason why I do this. When I am traveling or going somewhere, I don't like to have to, pack a whole lot of big containers like this. I don't like to have to, I pack and unpack things. I like to actually divide my materials up so that I, at a drop of a hat, can pick up something and maybe go and draw outside with it, or, uh, you know, pack it into my bag to go away. So I actually keep a little traveling set of everything, as well as keeping a little set of materials that I can use in my studio. So, for example, here is my set of chalk pastels. I've got all of my colors. I've got a beautiful studio set that I keep in the studio, but here is a set that I have divided them up into. And when I want to go and draw outside or paint outside, or I'm going away somewhere and I want to quickly pack my materials, I just grab this little box. It's all ready to go. What I've done, this is on the wrong side, what I've done is I've divided my colors into warm colors, this is also on the wrong side, and cool colors. And then it makes it really easy for me when I'm working outdoors or maybe working in my sketchbook. I can find the colors really easily. So I actually plan on doing the same with these Inktense blocks because I'm going to keep a set of these in the studio. I'll put, I'll keep these in here. And I actually find it much easier to work with a small piece than to work with a bigger piece because I'm not sure if you've ever had that situation where you get something brand new like this and you're working with it. And as you're working with it, it snaps in half or it breaks. And very often it breaks in the most untimely place. So maybe it breaks a little tip off the end or something like that as you're applying pressure. Whereas I find little pieces like this are so much easier to use. It also means that you can use the piece on its side, not only have to use it sort of drawing on its tip, but you can use the side of it, gives you a much easier mark to work with. So I have some containers here and I filled them with rice. You're probably thinking, what on earth are you doing, Heidi? I have a little bit of rice in here, and the reason why I have rice in here is I find with my chalk pastels, which I've just shown you, here are my chalk pastels here, I actually have them on a little bed of rice, and I find that it just helps them to not bump around too much in the container. The rice sort of just provides a little cushion for them to sit on. I believe it also helps to keep them nice and clean. Not that I've ever had a problem with that, but I do think that it does help them to stop sort of crashing around in here and maybe you know becoming dusty. So I have a little container like this and I've actually got two of them. I've got one that I'm going to put my warm colors in and one that I'm going to put my cool colors in. And then if I'm going away somewhere, it's just a little container that I can pop into my bag and I've already got it packed. I don't have to worry about packing things up. And of course, I don't have to worry about them breaking up because I've got nice size pieces here that I can work with. So I know that there are some of you that are going to be thinking, Heidi, I can't believe you are doing this. I can't believe that you are taking some brand new Inktense blocks and you are breaking them in half. But I promise you that in the long run, it really, I find, works much easier than trying to work with a long piece like this and you end up having little bits that snap off the end. And those tiny little bits, when they snap off the end, they're really hard to do anything with. So this way, by breaking it in half, I've got two nice sized usable pieces that I can use. So one will stay in my studio, it'll stay here on my drawing desk, and one will stay packed away with my materials that I can quickly grab if I am wanting to go and draw outside, for example. So I am going to get these all into their little containers, and I'll see you back here when I'm done. I have all the Inktense blocks sorted. I have broken them all in half. I know that some of you are going to think that I am absolutely crazy doing this, but breaking them in half just confirmed for me that it's the right thing for me to do because they are actually quite crumbly. As I was breaking them, I realized just how soft they are. And I just know that if I was using them in a long piece, in the long format, I tend to be quite expressive and rough and not very gentle at all. And I know that if I was using them in the long stick form, that I would end up crumbling and crushing them. So I just find this size is a nice, easy size to hold to use in my sketchbook. So I think I've done the right thing. I'm very happy that I broke them in half so that I can preserve them and they will probably last a lot longer and won't crumble up. I did, however, notice that when I had divided them up, that there are a whole lot more cool colors than warm colors. When I say cool and warm, what I'm meaning is I've divided my pinks, reds, and oranges here, and all my blues, greens, and browns or darks are over here. Now, that just makes it easier for me when I'm working. I know sort of where something is. It makes it easier for me to go. Now, I do paint a lot of flowers, so I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty disappointed that there are so few reds and pinks and yellows or warm tones in the set. Now, I'm not a great one for buying sets of things. As a matter of fact, I normally recommend not buying a set of something, but this set was on sale and I couldn't resist buying them because I'd never actually tried them before, and I don't actually know anywhere where you can buy Derwent Inktense in singles in South Africa. So I didn't really have a choice but to buy a set. But this is exactly one of the reasons why I normally don't like buying a set. I like to choose my own colors because it's pretty disappointing, right? The selection here of colors. And this is a set of 38 colors that I've got. And what I did do was I tested out all the colors just to be able to have a look and see what colors are in the set. And if you have a look at the colors, so I've just written the numbers underneath them so that if I wanted to, reorder them, if I can find a place where they sell them individually. But I was pretty disappointed. I mean, who needs so many blacks, so many darks? I mean, I know there is subtle changes in the tone. One is more of a brown black, one is more of a lamp black, like a blue black. But honestly, I would rather have had a greater selection of pinks and reds happening over here. I think that, that's a bit lacking. So when I was working with the colors, I actually really was a little bit disappointed with the fact that, I would have preferred more of these tones to be in the set. I don't think I needed so many dark tones in the set. But anyway, that's what happens when you buy a set. You don't really have control of the colors that come in your set. In saying that, though, there is a lovely variety of colors here, and I know it's going to be super useful. So I've divided up my Inktense. Let's have a look at some of the things that the Inktense can do. First of all, the Inktense block can be used like a crayon or a bit of a pastel. Now, I've been playing with these all day, so apologies, my fingers are so dirty because they are actually quite messy to use. So perhaps if you're not really into messy, the pencils may be a better option for you. They can be used just like a pastel. You can work into them, you can mix some of your colors, and of course, the thing that I like best is that because I have made them small, I can also lay down larger areas of color using the side of it like that. I usually travel or always have these water pens around with me. So what you can then do is you can use the water pen to, you can mix the colors with them, and obviously you can then get a really nice inky effect, which is great if you are traveling or you're painting outdoors and you are not wanting to take any inks or wet medium with you. It means that you can take along your Inktense and you can put down large areas of color and then simply work into it with your traveling brush or your water brush and be able to get quite beautiful painterly marks. Now I'm making a bit of a mess on the surface because I'm mixing all the colors. The three primaries they are mixing in the middle and making a bit of a muddy color. But obviously that is the one way you can use them. The other thing that you can obviously do is put down the color, and you can take a paintbrush and some water. And if you are, for example, traveling, or you are, if you are, out of your studio, you can take the color and you can actually, instead of applying the color and then going over it, you could actually just take your brush and run your brush along the paint stick and be able to build up color like that. So it almost then becomes like a little portable traveling, watercolor set or ink set if you are wanting to travel and take some colors, but you don't want to travel with paint. The other thing that you can also do is just lay down some water and then work into that wet surface, which also gives a beautiful, rich mark and actually allows you to build up some beautiful textures into the wet surface. So I think that these are pretty versatile. I think that they are a little bit more versatile for me than the watercolor pencils, because while I don't have any of the Inktense pencils, a watercolor pencil tends to give a very definite mark, like a pencil mark, whereas I feel like with the Inktense blocks, I can actually get down bigger areas of color. So the mark making ability of these is a little bit different to the pencil format, even though the pencil format is also water soluble. Bear in mind, this is a Derwent watercolor pencil. It's not an Inktense. I don't own any Inktense pencils. Maybe I should buy some before I start comparing or telling you the differences. But for me, that is the reason why I decided to buy the Inktense blocks as opposed to the Inktense pencils, because I just felt like they were going to give me a little bit more scope in terms of the mark that they could make. And I could also use them sideways because I like to break them up. I could use them sideways to be able to lay down larger areas of color on my surface and then be able to work into it. So I think that these will be really handy. Can you imagine if you were wanting to get down big areas of water or landscape, be able to put this down as an initial surface and then be able to work into. So we've got a bit of an area here, we've got a bit of a surface, and this is dry, and now you can actually layer these up. So if this was the only material you were going to take, because of the shape of it, can you see what I mean about being messy? Look at the color of my hands. So if you look at the shape of it allows you to still make a very linear mark. So I kind of feel like with the Inktense blocks, I'm still getting the best of both worlds. I'm also getting that beautiful linear mark that the pencil can make, but I'm also able to cover larger areas than maybe what the pencil could. And can you see how beautifully it layers? So this is already dry, it dries really quickly. I could then start to work in another layer into the surface if I wanted to. You can see I'm pretty rough with the materials, which is why it's perfect for me to break them up into these smaller pieces, then working with the bigger pieces. So there we go, layering up. You can now start to build, and you can start to work and build these layers. And I think that these could be really, really fun to work with if you were, especially if you were traveling and you wanted to take a limited supply of materials. These could double up as working a bit like colored pencils, but also working like inks or watercolors as well. So I'm really looking forward to taking my two little containers. As I said, I just wish there were more colors in the spectrum, in the reds, yellows, pinks, oranges. I really would have loved more colors in these tones, but I'll have to look out for them. If anyone knows anywhere where you can buy them individually in South Africa, I'd love you to pop it in the comments and let me know. Something I forgot to show you is if you decide to break your pieces in half like I do, they're so much easier to work with. If you decide to break them and you find that you have some little pieces that crumble, or even if you don't break them and you find you have pieces that crumble off of them because they are quite soft, as a matter of fact, they're very soft to use. If you find you have little pieces that crumble, save those little pieces like I have done here, or you could even scrape using maybe a palette knife, scrape a little bit of it off, and you can actually make a little pool of watercolor. So let me show you what I mean. In this little palette, I have a little bit of the dust that came off of this one as I broke it in half. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a few little drops of water to this, and I'm going to show you how, if I mix it up, so you could actually mix this in a little spare watercolor palette that you have. And now I have a beautiful watercolor paint. And that was simply just using little dust pieces that came off as I broke it. But if you were, for example, traveling and you didn't want to take a set of watercolors with you and you suddenly decided you want to cover a large area in your sketchbook, you could actually mix up a little pool like this. You could even actually make yourself your own set of watercolors, because remember that these reconstitute when they dry if you add a little bit of water. So even if this little pool of watercolor or little ink that I have created here, if it dries, you can actually reconstitute it again with a little bit of water. So a great way to also be able to not only use up little bits that might crumble off, but also to build up large areas of color, which is why I think I find these a little bit more versatile than buying a set of the pencils. So I'm really looking forward to giving these a try in my sketchbook. It's such beautiful weather even though it's winter. I've decided to come outside and use my sketchbook to document the beautiful camellias that are in flower in the garden at the moment. I'm using the Royal Talens sketchbook, my Inktense, and I also use some homemade ink pens, which if you have a look, I've done a video before on how I make them. Thanks for joining me in my studio this week to find out about the Inktense blocks, and thanks for joining Batty and I in the garden. We had such fun. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It helps me to share with others, and subscribe or pop a comment below to say hi. See you again soon.